Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 55 of Talking to Artists. Today we're going to be talking to wildlife Vancouver artist Karin Taylor, but before that, just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on some of the things that are happening. So, really excited to be part of the Riverdale Art Walk. It is unfortunately online this year because of the restrictions with COVID. However, we're going to be doing a tent tour. So there are about 25 artists, I think, that are setting up their tents in their own locations to create these little mini stores and mini shows. I'm going to be actually with 7 other artists, so 8 of us in the parking lot at Art Alchemy, which is Laird and Eglinton in Leaside in Toronto. And so I hope you can come out and visit. We will have COVID protocols in place. It'll be safe. Everyone's wearing a mask, but I am super excited to see some real people. So I really hope that you can show up. And the weekend after that, I'm doing the North Toronto Group of Artists show, where I will have the same sort of scenario, a tent in my own driveway. And I think there's 40 artists involved in that. So especially if you are looking for something to do on the weekends, it's a great opportunity to rollerblade or skate or whatever and kind of check all these this art out. So the other thing I'm just going to rant about a little bit before I get started is because I'm just so incredibly devastated by the gypsy moth infestation that's happening this year. It's like the worst I've ever seen at the cottage in 45 years. And I was sitting out with my coffee the other day, and I was thinking, oh, it's that really beautiful soft rain, you get at the cottage. And I love to sit out under the umbrella and listen to the rain. And then I realized, no, it's not the rain. It's actually all the dead leaves from the forest falling because these gypsy moths are eating everything, the oaks and the maples. It's getting to the point where it's hard to actually walk outside because you get dumped with like cobwebs and these moths. They come down on strings from the trees and then hide during the day and then go back up to the trees at night. So it's so disgusting. I spent a half an hour this morning picking about 75 moths off my one rose bush, which is now pretty much denuded of any leaves at all. So I don't even know if it'll survive. Anyway, I know I'm inspired by nature and I love nature, and I'm realizing I only like the good side of nature. I really don't like this shitty side of nature. So anyway, sorry about that. And we're now going to bring on Karin Taylor, who I am really excited to talk to. And let's see if I have actually not seen or talked to Karin in, 4 or 5 years maybe. I think it's been a while. This is not the Karin Taylor that is in my Art Alchemy group.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello, long time no. Well, I have seen you, but so.
I know, but I was thinking because we first met at Art Vancouver, and that must have been 5 years ago?
Easily, I'd say. Yeah, maybe even longer. But wasn't it the very first one they did?
It was either the first one or the second one. Yeah, it was very early on, and I remember it's kind of hilarious because my friend. Karin Taylor, who I have these collective with, and then I'm like, and here I am, a new show, new city, beside a new Karin Taylor. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. So, God, I was just listening to your story about the moths. That's horrendous.
It is.
Is that the end of the trees for this season? Like no more leaves, or will they recover?
Well, so what they do is that if the tree is, so they have basically a 13-year cycle. So they're bad kind of every 13 years, and they tend to run for about 3 years. I think this is the second or the third year of them. So what happens is that they tend to go up in the trees, eat the leaves. They come down on these springs, like webs, and then hide during the day. And so I have a crabapple tree, which was gorgeous this year. It was beautifully flowered. It's now completely nude. There's not a single leaf on it.
Oh.
So with those trees, they kind of hope if they're healthy, then they will have a second set of leaves and they will survive. The problem is if you have this over 3 years and the trees aren't healthy, you can start to lose trees. And we've got some really nice big, maples and oaks on the property that I'd hate to lose.
Yeah. No, not.
And they're now starting actually on the hemlocks and the pines, which of course don't replace their leaves or their needles as quickly. So it's pretty devastating. And the hardest part, honestly, is you can't do anything. Like I can pick them off my rose bushes, which is, my husband says, it's just ridiculous. Like it's not really going to help, right?
No.
So you just have to kind of sit and watch and listen to all this destruction around you.
Yeah, it's like COVID just doesn't stop giving.
Oh, yeah. It's very much that same sort of concept where it's just like, I feel like I want to do something, but I can't. I could just sit here and watch.
But your shows are taking off fast now, right? So many.
We're really hoping, yeah. It's, you know, it was one of those things where everything's had to come together pretty quickly because we didn't really know, really until a week ago, whether or not we were going to be able to even do these
Oh,
small shows.
yeah,
And so we'll have somebody who will be kind of managing the number of people in the space and making sure people sign in and,
yeah,
you know, use their hand sanitizer and stuff. But
uh-huh,
honestly, even if only 10 people show up, I'm super excited to see 10
yes,
people that I haven't seen before.
anything for a
Yeah,
start.
exactly.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah,
So anyway, I love the fact that you kind of are and actually I have to tell you, I'm really embarrassed to admit, I was so entranced by your yoga bears. I didn't actually realize you're also a painter. So wildlife kind of artist who kind of captures that West Coast vibe using really unusual materials, which
yeah,
is kind of cool.
that was it. It started a long time ago, like 30 years ago. I mean, we've been nomads all our lives. We've been living in so many countries and places that when we lived in Indonesia, I was involved with the zoo there, and we set up this organization to educate people about what they shouldn't be giving animals when they were watching them. Like they would give plastic bags with juice in them to monkeys and other animals, and they would get sick and die. So anyway, we set
Yeah.
up this organization. I ended up being the house artist for that organization. So I was hands-on with anything you ever dream of. Like we looked at
Wow.
with tiger cubs for 3 months, baby orangutans. And so it was amazing. So that really steered me even more into painting wildlife and liking it. And prior to that, when we were still in Holland, my very first art lessons I took was watercolor. And uh, she was really into flowers. And I always thought that I'd totally go that way. And after 3 flowers, I was like, I'm not really liking this. So then I just had an image of a grizzly bear and I painted it, and it turned out really, really nicely. I was happy with it. And I was like, yep, I found it.
Yeah.
And it
That's so cool, is it, when you have that like instinctive, yep, found my vision, know what I'm doing.
and even now, if I try something that I know my heart's not in, I might as well not bother, because you know after 2 strokes it's not going anywhere. You're just pretending
Yeah.
you're doing something. So
Well, the energy's different too, don't you think? Like if you're kind of forcing yourself to do stuff that's kind of like, I should be doing this, but it's not really, my heart's not really in it.
yeah,
The piece has a different energy.
yeah, or you look at your hand and you're painting, and it's like, yeah, I'm sure my hand will know what it's doing, and your brain's not there. It's
Yeah.
different, but yeah, I've always been attracted to unusual materials for sure. And we emigrated to Calgary in '97, and ended up living west of the city, so quite a lot of wildlife straight away, next to a really nice river with massive river rocks and boulders and stuff. And I ended up painting 5 years, I think, on river rocks using the shape as the animal. And it got,
Oh, so you actually used it. So the river rocks were actually your substrate.
yeah. And
Oh, cool.
start of this sort of ladybug gone mad thing, but I took it to a whole different level. Mine were realistic animals like horses, bears, owls, you name it. And one of my late last commissions I did was a life-size grizzly bear on a 350-pound boulder. And I
Wow.
had great fun. It took me, I think, 6 weeks to paint or so, and it ended up really quite lifelike. And the guy who ordered it had a house in Canmore, and he had never told his wife. So we ended up having to get a mover van and 3 movers or whatever. And they put it outside by our house. And she came home that night, and then it was dusk, and she looked out the window and she saw this sleeping bear. And she freaked. She spent like 2 hours not going out of the house and thinking it was really cool. Anyway, that was sort
I'm just curious, what do you have to do to prepare a stone so that it can
of,
stay outside?
you really have to clean it really, really well, and use extremely good quality acrylic paints, and then coat it in polyurethane.
Polyurethane? Yeah, okay.
And
Oh,
then
it's interesting.
that too, because I had some outside as well, smaller ones. Anyway, this was killing me, right? Like physiotherapy, just finding
Oh,
them.
I bet.
And
Well, I sort of, I just want to say I can kind of identify on a very, very small case because I just posted this reel this morning.
know that.
The kids in the neighborhood, I noticed they have these rocks with happy faces, and every time you walk, you move them
Yeah.
to a different location, right? And so I thought, well, it'd be kind of fun to do one of my own. So I just did a really small
Yeah.
granite one. It's
Yeah.
not big, and I resined it. But even walking it up, it's like, yeah, this is kind of heavy. Like you forget.
Yeah.
It seems kind of stupid. You forget how heavy rocks really,
Yeah.
really are.
I know. So as a complete contrast, we ended up going to Santa Fe, I think, on holiday. Have you ever been there?
I haven't. I'd love to. The colors are supposed to be beautiful.
It's amazing. It's the biggest inspiration for artists. Like there's this street, I think there's 200 galleries in it. It's unreal. Anyway, there were some painted feathers there, turkey feathers. And they just blew me away. It was just so beautiful. And so I thought that's kind of cool. So then I got a few of those turkey feathers, and actually I found a hawk feather or an owl feather on the road. And then I realized very, very quickly that only you're not allowed to use any of these feathers. You can only work with turkey feathers. It's not legal. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Is that it everywhere in the U.S. or just in Santa Fe or
No, it's everywhere.
or anywhere?
Too. Yeah. It's only.
I guess it's part of the indigenous culture, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe so it's kind of
Yeah.
appropriation, I
There are the only
suppose. Yeah.
people that are allowed to use it, so I stayed well clear of that. Anyway, it suited me fine. Turkey feathers were great. And then for like 12 years, I painted on those, and again at a level that I was happy with it, and other people were happy with it. I ended up exhibiting in the Calgary Stampede Western Art Show with them, and I did TV specials for Home and Garden TV with them, and Chinese TV in Vancouver, which was interesting because it was all in Chinese. I had no idea what they were saying, but that was fun. And
That's interesting because when I was sort of Googling you, that feather paintings came up a number of times, and I wasn't really sure whether or not you were painting on feathers or painting using feathers as your brush strokes. Or
I'm just trying to see if I have a small.
yeah, send me. I'd love to see a photo of them so I can add them to my podcast whenever I finally get yours
I have no
put into a
idea.
podcast form.
This is a bookmark of one that I did.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
So, and then it just goes so well, and I did my own framing with it too. So I used leather and suede and things like that. So, and then after.
And so sorry, I just have to ask because you've been on HGTV. Like, how was that? What did you do? How did that happen?
That was interesting. So this was and you know what? I still haven't seen the actual clip. It's like I think it's 10 minutes long, and
Wow.
they came over with I don't know 10 people for this, and it was in my house, and they turned me into some sort of reality character. I had to leap into the lens and yell, "This is me!" And I've had 16 cups of coffee. It was bizarre, but it took a long time. And every time I said something that I wanted to say, they were like, maybe you should say it like this. And it got really hard work. And I was thinking, wow, is this how all these reality shows go? Nothing you say is what you want to say. But
yeah,
it was interesting. And even now, I'm thinking this is probably 15 years ago. If they rebroadcast that bit, I do get emails still from people. It's quite interesting. But at the end of the day, I was like, I'll go naked. Just make it stop. It was so long.
It's interesting too because like to me it kind of a little bit connects with like drawing flowers if your heart's not into it. If you're all of a sudden you're doing this interview but none of the words are your words and you're not saying what you want to say, it must again create a bit of a different energy at the end of the day than what you were visualizing.
Yeah, Yeah, and I mean, having said that, I was extremely grateful for the opportunity,
Oh, yeah.
obviously, for sure. But it really taught me a lot of lessons that you need to stay true to yourself, and you can't pretend to be something that you think people want you to be. That doesn't work in life. Certainly doesn't work for art, I find.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
And that's what you learned, right?
yeah, totally. So after that, I we ended up going back to Holland for a while, and I've always wanted to do statues, but when I was in my teens, I fell off a horse and I broke my wrists, and they're not great. So working with clay is really, really hard on your wrists and everything. So I was never able to. And I went to my old art store, and I said, God, I've got all these statues in my head and I can't get them out. And I can't use clay. And she says, oh, here's a bag, try this. So I went home and I tried it, and it was like, this is it. So
And I have to interrupt you for a second, just to tell the audience who's listening, because the first time I came across your yoga bears, you know, they look like bronze. They look like these bronze sculptures on pieces of rock, and you really expect them to be heavy,
yeah, well,
and they're not. It's so weird, and they're so cute. Yeah, I have one at home, and I love it. I look at it every day.
so it's they definitely look bronze, and it's
Yeah.
I use a bronze enamel and I coat them in a patina. But
So I shouldn't have interrupted. So tell me about what it was you were working with.
okay, so it's a really fine wood cellulose powder, and you mix it only with water. You don't add anything to it, which is great. I have to wear a mask when I mix it because it is that fine, and I cannot find it in North America. It's which is great. It makes it more unique, I suppose. But
Hmm.
I went to Michael's. I went to other places for wood cellulose powder, and I had people coming like, "Oh, I just chopped my tree. Do you want some?" And no, it doesn't work. So and it's just phenomenal material. And the other thing that's really nice, that especially after painting on feathers for 15 years, I was phenomenally precise in my work. Like everything has to be completely realistic. Whereas this, if you mix it, it's almost like mincemeat when you work with it. It's a very soft material, so you can't be precise, and it was very liberating. I had great fun realizing.
And do you mold it, or like you
No,
put it in a mold, so you actually are sculpting it,
yeah,
you're adding
I,
to it.
I use whatever I think works for me as a base, what I have in my head, and then I build it up. So I've got one here that I'm working with. It's uh, airplane pose.
He's lovely.
So he's nearly done, but basically you get a shape and then you add things to it, and then you just work from there. So
It's so cool. Yeah.
and
Yeah, you kind of have to see them in real life. I mean, they look amazing in photos too, but in real life, you just get that lovely,
well,
I think, juxtaposition of kind of like expecting the heaviness, but it's so light, and it makes
yeah,
it just, I think and they're so airy and light in terms of their demeanors as well, so it kind of works.
yeah, and the whole process was quite interesting how the yoga bears happened, because I'd started doing bears, and I'm in awe of Nicola Princeton. I don't know if you've ever seen her work. She's a phenomenal artist, and what I like about her work is that every time you see it, you just smile. It lifts you up, and it's a bit like your art. It's happy. You feel good, and
Hmm.
that's always been in the back of my mind when I started this, that I wanted to do art that makes people smile, and it did, and it does. So that's good. And then when we moved to Vancouver in 2014, I think, and now we're on the Sunshine Coast, which is absolutely heaven. I love it. It's so beautiful here. Um, but when we moved to Vancouver, our daughter signed us up for yoga, and at first we were like, "Okay, what am I doing here?" And then you get into it, and I love it now. But I remember being in the middle of a class, just looking at some people and doing some complicated poses, and I suddenly went, "Bears do that." So so that's where that came from, and I tried a few poses, and especially the savasana. I've got one here that's
I love that.
the one that
I think there's a picture on your website, and there's one of those just
yeah.
kind of like hanging out on the on a glass coffee table. That's so
So
great.
these are not finished, obviously, the white ones, but the Savasana ones, it shows that people just love them. And there's two reactions. Oh, that's my husband after the weekend, or oh, that's me. It's really fun to see people liking them, and nobody's doing them. So that I like that too. I like being
Yeah.
unique in art. It's
Well, it's always hard to find your own vision and your own identifiable thing. And it's funny because sometimes I think you do sort of stumble onto it and then realize, oh, that's cool. No one else is doing it.
yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, you especially, you're the only one that does this, or at least that I know of, in your work. So it's great. And your sister, I love her work with her trees.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So
Yeah, well, it makes it kind of fun. I was actually just listening to a really interesting podcast the other day that Superfine does. And this one artist, there was this whole question as to whether or not, and I've been sort of, I think you always struggle with this. It's like, should I stay on the path of what I'm doing, and even though I'm really enjoying it, or should I do something new? And so this whole concept was, once you find your vision, then you've got a foundation to work from, right?
yeah.
And then you can kind of continue to play and make it more sophisticated, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to feel that you always have to change stuff. So I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel. I'm good now.
That's true. What I'm learning is my environment has a massive impact on me, because like in Alberta, we lived in Bright Creek, and quite remote, and we had so much wildlife. And it was just awesome to paint moose and everything, because we literally had them on the front door. And now we've moved to the Sunshine Coast and we live so close to the sea. I've started painting waves and whales, and I can feel this whole thing creeping in. And I know that there's another thing lurking art-wise that I want to try out, but I haven't started yet, so I'm not going there. But
It's even as you're talking, I could totally see the yoga bears being like a orca series as well, like because they have the same sort of
yeah,
feeling, a roundness.
I know. So
They're killers and they're round. This works.
yeah, even well, basically, if you paint an orca, you might as well start with a banana, because that's a really really good comparison. But it's so inspirational to be here on the Sunshine Coast, and we didn't know that. We found this place 6 years ago, and they have an art crawl here in October, which has got like 175 galleries that open up, and people come from everywhere. They take the ferry from Seattle, from the island, and there's so many amazing artists out here. It blew me away. It's like I'm home. It's great. It's
Yeah.
really good.
Do you think that crawl will happen this year?
Yeah, I think they've.
Oh, that's great.
It even happened last year. It was you could choose as an artist to do it remote, just by Zoom, or you could get people to make appointments, or you could people to just show up and then go in 2 by 2 wearing masks and everything. And my studio here has a bottom entrance, so I was just open, but it was so much quieter than normally, because people weren't allowed to take the ferry, or didn't want to take the ferry. Basically, why would they?
Yeah.
So
you kind of get your neighborhood, I guess.
yeah, I got the and other artists, and basically the people that live here. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I remember doing some of that crawl. I think I somehow fell upon it, and it was the last day. But yeah, it's quite fascinating. Some of the warehouses where it's just like studio after studio after studio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so. But
And so you also said you lived, just to go back, in the far in the Middle East. So I know you talked about Indonesia. So how long did you do that for? And did that sort of affect your art in a different way, or is that really was the start of your wildlife collection?
it didn't affect my art, because I didn't really use any of the images that they work with there. And when we lived in Cairo, we spent 2 years when we were just married living in Cairo. So I've seen so many pyramids and hieroglyphs and other things, but it does influence look at color and how they use things, especially if you saw in newly discovered pyramids, for instance, how bright the original colors were with lapis lazuli and all. You would love it.
Oh yeah.
It really opened my eyes in how strong color is for having an effect on a painting, for sure. And yeah, Indonesia was more, the city was very intense. It was like a city of 18 million people, the size of Vancouver. So the pollution and everything was hard, but the zoo was this oasis of green and everything. But I because of what I was doing, I was focusing on the animals mostly. And unique experiences, absolutely amazing. Like the tiger cubs that we
That
were
sounds
out
so
to,
great.
they were like 6 weeks, and then people, the mother had rejected them, so people were having them in the Hilton apartments, one each, to get them through the worst period, and then they were put back, all three of them, when they were about 6 or 8 weeks, and we would go there, and my twins were, I don't know, 1.5 or 2 at the time, so they would come, and I remember thinking, not sure how long I'm going to be taking him with me when I do this. And I remember when they were about 3 months old, these tigers, I could see one of them go and look at my son. I can do other things. So
Yeah, I can see that.
it was interesting, but and then when those tigers were grown up, one of them was very tame, and if you would call him, he'd come running and leap in the moat, and then I would run along the moat, and he would go with me and do it all over again.
Wow.
Having a giant dog, it was
Yeah.
it was good, but uh, it sure opens your eyes to how other people live and especially how they do art. Like we went to Bali on holiday, obviously a number of times, and there's so much art there. There's a village where all they do is wood carving, and then there's a village where they do. Actually, you would really like that. They in a way, it would relate to your work, how they paint there. It's really cool, and so that was fun.
I'll have to add that to my list, long list of places I want to travel to.
Yeah, no, you should. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
So have you always known you were going to be an artist? Like, do you come from a family of artists, or you just kind of?
I have a faint hope that Jan van Kessel from 1600, it was right up there with Frans Hals and Rembrandt, that era. He's a Belgian painter. It is in my family line, that name. But my sister in Holland is an artist. Both my kids are actually doing pretty good. So I've always known I wanted to do art. But at the same time, I did start out in PR and other stuff. I didn't study art. I didn't end up doing that. But because we traveled so much, it was a choice that we made when my husband, who's from England, and I met, that his work was going to take him all over the world. And my choice was, well, should he stop doing that, and should we just stay here, or should we open up and I'll just wing it wherever I go, I'll do something. And I decided to do that, and I haven't regretted it. I mean, no, it wasn't easy.
That seems amazing. Well,
Yeah,
it sounds like an easy choice in terms of, like, you get to see all this stuff, but I can totally see you're uprooting yourself from all your family and your friends. It sounds like every few years.
yeah. You certainly become a nomad, and that's another reason we emigrated to Canada when our twins were 10. That it was time for them to have some roots, and it was a good decision at the time. But yeah, we moved every, I don't know, 18 months or something to a new place. And
That's a lot. Well, even as a kid, we used to move every about 3 or 4 years, probably 4 years.
yeah,
And although it gives you a lot of really great skills, like you learn to be very resilient, you learn to be able to find your own entertainment, make friends and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it also means, I've always been envious of these people that have these friendships from when they were 2, right? So when
Yeah.
we had kids too, I kind of said, I feel like I want to give them that solid foundation.
Yeah, and they were ready for it. And apparently there's a syndrome called Flying Dutchman syndrome, that if its children experience too much of this moving about, they're unable to maintain a relationship later in life, because they know that every relationship they have will end because they or them or the other person leaves. So it
Right.
messed them up. So that was good, and I think we did it good. One of them is happily married. No, both of them are happily married now. It's and I'm really happy the border is opening up, because one of them is in the States now, so we can visit them again.
Oh,
He's a
that'd be
graphic
nice.
designer, and I know he's going to be an artist one day. And my daughter's just started painting and is blowing us away with what's suddenly happening. It's great to see. So
Oh, that's fabulous.
yeah,
Yeah, it's always weird because my kids are both creative, but they do sort of more theater and rap and stuff like that, but none
yeah,
of them really paint. And it's always funny how, as an artist, when it's such a part of your life, you just kind of assume that your kids are going to do the same thing,
yeah.
you
And
know?
I remember the fun thing was when they were in school in Calgary, I started doing some art lessons and stuff. I gave some lessons to people, watercolor lessons, and it's really fun to see people blossom. And my first teacher, she had this ability to home in on like a square centimeter that was perfect of a horrible painting, but she would go, "Look how nice this is," and it lifted you up. So it taught me a lot, and a lot of people that take first lessons, when they get into it and they change their mindset, that there's always something that's good of your painting.
Yeah.
Might not be the whole thing, but there's always something. So
Well, and I think when we obviously do our creative adventures, which
mhm,
is creativity retreats for non-artists, it's like that same sort of idea. Like,
yeah,
the reality is that even the result on the page, maybe even if it is really horrible, like the whole fact that you've been able to tap into this creativity and you've opened it up,
yeah,
is super powerful. And it does take some time to sort of allow that freedom,
yeah,
to kind of just play and not be so caught up in what you're producing.
hmm, yeah, and it was liberating to teach. And then I ventured out a little bit and taught in local schools as well, with rock painting and other stuff, and it's really grateful work to get people to do stuff, for sure.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's, I'm just really looking forward to getting kind of back to that. I mean,
yeah,
of course, looking forward to getting back to a lot of stuff, but I felt like we were, just starting to get on a really good groove with creative adventures. And there were people that had taken one and they were just blown away, I think, by what they were able to do. And it's just so fabulous to kind of feel like, yeah, we're just bringing more artists into the world. We're just
yeah,
embracing more people to be creative.
totally. No, I agree. And I'm slowly getting back into the routine again, in prepping for a couple of art shows later this year. And otherwise, I'm really happy with my galleries that my stuff is in.
Oh, good.
So
Yeah.
it's
So do you want to give a shout out to your galleries?
but yeah, great. It's the Avens Gallery in Canmore, which is stunning stuff, and a really happy place to walk in. It's just beautiful what they have in there. And then
If I remember correctly, did they not find you at Art Vancouver?
pardon? Yes,
Did they not find you at Art Vac? Because I think I was there, or I remember you telling us when you're like, "Oh my gosh, this gallery just approached me, and I think they're
yeah,
going to represent me," and it was
yeah.
so exciting.
And then the Black Spruce Gallery in um, oh gosh, I keep Waskapoo in Saskatchewan. So
Oh,
that's been a really fun place to join as well. So I'm working for that, and then I literally just said to my husband this morning, I've really got to start thinking about the autumn, because things will be back up to normal for sure. I think
yeah,
art wise.
yeah. I certainly hope so. It's hard though because as on the other for me, the other hat of me is the chair of the Artist Network, which organizes outdoor shows, right? And so you have to plan so far in advance, but a lot of the permits haven't been confirmed and you don't know what's going to happen. And so it's hard to sometimes do these things at the last minute. But
Yeah.
I know Helen and I were talking about, I think there's an art fair in Seattle that Superfine does. And my work actually probably wouldn't really do that well there, but I really love Seattle. But with the West Coast sort of stuff that she's producing and stuff, it would be kind of a fun show to do.
Yeah, I've signed up for Art Market again in Calgary, and I love that show. I've been doing it for like 20 years. It's so fun, and it's 5 days, and I like that number of days.
Is that a signature show?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about that because they bought quite a few. They seem to be on a bit of a buying spree because I think Circle Craft in Vancouver now, I think they own two, right?
Yeah, they're doing it, and then the Toronto one is after that. What's that called now? It's an 11-day one. You must know of it.
Oh, the one of a kind, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep. Yeah, I do that one.
you do that, yeah. I actually ended up getting one of their grants with my feathers, and I did a 5-day stint there when I did that. It's and it blew me away again. I know it's not all art, but just what people make, even if it's not proper art, it doesn't matter. If it's good, I love seeing it.
Yeah, and I think the people that come, the attendees for that one of a kind too, they really love, I think, things that are handmade, right? So, I mean, certainly the craft part as well as the art part. So,
yeah.
I know I'm in the arts section there, which isn't quite as busy, but it's just it's such a great show to do. And
yeah,
11 days is long, but
yeah,
you just suck it up, and that's just part of the job. You just wear comfortable shoes.
So how's your show going now? This one?
Well, the Riverdale Art Walk one should be okay. It's mostly online, which I don't think is ever great for artists, but I think that it's pushed a lot of artists to actually embrace kind of the digital environment and having an online presence and having a store. And I think that we'll kind of see that this was a bit of a pivotal moment for a lot of businesses, and I think art is no different, where it's just allowed more opportunities for artists to reach out their tendrils and have a bit more control over their sales process.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, then you got to learn crafts like shipping and stuff like that, which I'd love to not have to do.
Well, you learn fast, right? I mean, I remember shipping some paintings to the States, and they arrived in tatters. And I was watching your little clip the other day of how you make your crate, and I thought, that's what you do.
Yeah, it's so funny because I always have to remember, though, when I'm shipping it to the US, I have to have at least one side that uses Phillips screwdrivers and not Robertson, otherwise they can't open it.
Yeah. So you did shows in Spain, didn't you, a while ago? Or
I did, yeah, that was quite a few years ago, Art Barcelona.
Yeah.
And that was just before Christmas, so it was actually kind of nice, too, because I said to my husband, like let's just go to Spain for Christmas.
Barcelona is probably my favorite city in Europe.
Oh, I love it. I'd been there, I think, 2 or 3 times before.
Yeah.
But it is one of those cities that I just think you can always go back to, And so the show it was short, which was kind of a bit of a drag. It was one of those ones where it was a day and a half. And so, unfortunately, it was one of those ones where, it didn't allow people to come in on the weekends and stuff. But it was still a really fun show to be part of. Met some really cool artists. And, then we basically just rented a car and drove southern Spain for the next 2 weeks with my daughter.
Tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's and that's why when you're talking Santa Fe, I'm like, well, I know a show in Santa Fe. Like, I'm pretty sure my work wouldn't actually do well in Santa Fe, but it would give me the opportunity to go there and write it off.
I think it might, because your colors are right up there with what they use. There's lots of turquoises, terracottas, ochres.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's worth trying. I think it's always fun it's a place I've always wanted to go. And it's one of the reasons I'm hopefully going to be able to get back to San Diego as well, because it's another city I really like. And
yeah. Have you been to Sedona?
No.
No. Yeah, that's a must. So not just because it's one of the most stunning places that you can think of. It's got all these beautiful Grand Canyon mountains and everything, but the colors, you would just love it. It's the vibrant everything. If you go in April and it's spring, you got every color that's in every painting that you use. It's stunning.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'll have to add that to my list.
Well, if you like
things to do
and art and that, you'll love it.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really, I said to my husband, because you're at COVID, there's just the two of you, and it's like, what do you want for your birthday? I'm like, well, I don't need anything because I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. I can't go to a restaurant. I said,
Yeah.
I'd like to just put all that money that we would have spent on birthdays and stuff into a travel fund, and then
Uh-huh.
when we can,
Yeah.
let's just do a lot of traveling and let's not
Yeah.
skimp out on doing it right.
No.
So
Yeah. No, good idea. Yeah, I asked for the odd workshop as well as a gift
yeah,
these days. And about, I don't know, 5 years ago, I think I did a workshop with Mike Swab, and that was awesome. His use of color and the fact that he doesn't do rules. The sky is green, the sky is purple, blue, whatever, and he makes it seem so easy, but it was so liberating to just watch him do that and wake up and think, yeah, why does it have to be what you see? It doesn't have to be
yeah.
what you see.
Because you have crappy art teachers when you're young that slap your hand if you do it the wrong color.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
You know?
that was absolutely, yeah, I remember that. My son, he went to a tour of Emily Carr, and there was somebody who was passionate about becoming a cartoonist. And one of the professors there really was very, very not happy with him even suggesting that. That was
hmm
not what he was supposed to be doing. And I thought, well, you're just crushing him there. Why can't you just let him be what he want to be and teach art at the same time? And I
Yeah.
disagree with that. Um,
Yeah, me too. Well, my sister went through that too because she was doing figures at a time when there was more abstract was kind of the big thing, right?
right.
And they're like, figures are passe. I'm like, I think that people have been doing figures for like what
Yeah.
30,000 years. I don't think it's going to be passe, but it does kind of, I think, nips your confidence in terms of feeling like you know what you want to do, right?
Yeah, yeah, and similarly, at one of my art show, I had a professor coming by once, and he looked at my work and he said, "So why do you price it that way? What makes you think that's the right price?" And I thought, here we go.
Or would I like it? What makes you think it's worth it? Is really what they're asking, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I said, well, it's clearly the right price because they're selling for that price. It is what people
Yeah,
have to pay for it, not what you think it's worth because of what it is. It,
yeah.
yeah, it was interesting.
I know. I love that when people kind of like, okay, so it's this big, and then they run a grid. How long did it take you to make it, and what did it cost you your materials? To kind of see if they can figure out your hourly rate, right? It's like, yeah, it just doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, I remember when I was painting on those rocks, there were people going like, well, it's on a rock. And I said, yes, and a painting is on a piece of paper. Does it really matter? It's it is what it is. It's but maybe it's wrong. I don't know.
No, I just think that, I think that probably all artists have gone through life and they can think of people who in their lives have been really pivotal in supporting. Like I had an amazing art teacher in high school, and then she left for a year, and we had this teacher that was, the classic, he teaches French, so you may as well get him to teach art because art's so easy.
You're right.
And he was so by the rule. And so I had always gone from being, pretty good at art, and I felt like I was an artist,
Yeah.
to just feeling like I have no talent. I've been totally fooling myself because everything I got back was wrong because it didn't follow the rules, right?
Yeah.
And I remember going to my parents kind of saying, yeah, I'm just not taking art next year because obviously I'm no good. And
Oh,
my dad's like, no, that's ridiculous. You can't let one bad teacher
yeah.
derail a passion that you've had for years.
Yeah.
But you can. I mean, that happens.
Yeah. No, it's the same for my son. He went to the UVA and he did art as a second, and his professor was jumping up and down that he wanted him to take it as a major because he has talent, he really does. But it will happen. But he said, no, I want to have a career, and I want to make sure that I have an income. And I mean, the standard joke in our family is you have to be dead to make money as an artist. But this is a bit mean.
But I think having actually some good business skills before you decide to become an artist
Yeah.
certainly doesn't hurt.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm sure he'll end up doing art stuff, but you need to be ready. You need to want to do it, and then you'll have the peace in your head to pursue it, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think so too.
And so,
Yeah. Well, it's been really lovely. We're almost at the end of our time, so maybe you can just share everybody your Instagram, your email address, or your website, so people can find you and find your work.
Yeah. So my website is karintaylorart.com, and my Instagram and Facebook account are just Karin Taylor. So
excellent.
Yeah.
So I always end up every interview with so if money, time, and everything were no option, what would your big hairy ass goal be?
To have a place that is totally inspiring and do the biggest pieces of art possible, like enormous canvases and
Like the whole room.
Yeah, something
That'd
like
be great.
yeah. Just watching an artist on the coast here who's reinventing himself, and he's just going enormous, and he took days off, or like 3 months off, to reinvent himself. It was very cool to watch, because it takes a lot of guts to do that.
Yeah, well, and also there's a lot of logistics. That's what always stops me, because I'm like, I love the idea of working really big, but I work flat, so that always creates a bit of a challenge. But then it's just like, but how do I move it, and how do I get it out of the car? How do I deliver it anywhere? Where do I store it?
I know, it was...
I shouldn't think about that.
No, one of the artists I know in Canmore, I can't think of her name right now, she paints bears, and she made this really big bear, and she lives about 20 minutes away from the gallery, and she just couldn't get it in her car, so she ended up just plasticking it, and she was just walking through the marsh with this giant painting, and I thought, good for you.
She's lucky it wasn't windy.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, that's cool. Well, it's been really delightful to talk to you and reconnect, and I'm hoping to get out to Vancouver at some point, so
oh, that'd be lovely.
I'll look you up and we'll have a coffee. That'd be fun to reconnect again.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Karin.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, and then we got coming up, we have Kat Tesla, who I'm looking forward to listening to what she has to say, because she actually has done this collaboration with an artist that I understand she hasn't met before. So that'll be kind of fun. And this interview and all of them will be on my Facebook and Instagram channel, as well as youtube.com/KateTaylorArt. And I'm really, really trying to kind of speed up my production to get these things on a podcast too. But anyway, have a great day, Karin. Have a great day, everybody. And we will talk to you later. Bye.